off rolling. It's just like I don't know, whatever. I'm not into it. It's not my
Yeah,
thing.
it's a waste of time. I wouldn't bother either.
Plus,
Scrims
I
is pretty
dumped a
much
ton of
over.
time already into it.
Okay, well, here's the link. It's gonna ask you for a password. Just type in 123, and let me see if I can full screen this. There we go. Okay, and you let me know when you can see it. Also, since you gave me the entire screen, what is there like?
Okay, so we
Yeah.
can kind of like it was actually, in my opinion, I think I did well in this scrim. So there was a first round before this where I like the I think it was the attack on Lunar. I played Moira and I did like really well, but then it like reminded me to start recording because I knew I was playing alright. So I switched to Anna now. So let's just see. Let's just watch some of it. We can skip through it, whatever you want to do. You're gonna hear my comms too because I'm like IGLing it. If you notice anything.
Yeah, we need to talk about comms anyways, because that's probably going to be the biggest mess. I guess I already
Yeah.
said mechanics at this level are fine. Even stuff like basic positioning is fine. So the main thing I want to focus on is really just how you guys play as a team and what you're talking about. Can you see the VOD?
Yeah, I got it. I'm in.
Okay, good.
There's definitely just we just have to like yeah, they're dead.
Oh, it's mine.
Genji's such a good target for us, so
He's in balls in space. Ball, everybody ball.
Ball, he's up. Wait, get balls this time.
I go point.
everyone go point.
Sombra.
Anna's in a weird ass spot.
Wait, so what's your comm structure? I'm a bit confused.
All right, so it's a newer team. So this roster is like so right now what we're doing is we're expanding.
Yeah.
And to have a second roster, and we're recruiting like better people for it because it's just the way to do it. So like 3 of these people playing here are sent down. The comm structure is supposed to be the main support, ult tracking and planning. Me just like calling pathing and IGLing, and then our main tank calls like target calls, which could just be completely wrong. We don't really like. I'm not an expert, I just that's what we found. That's just what kind of happened, honestly.
Yeah, don't do that. Oh shit. That's really okay. No. That's not
Okay.
really how you do it. What do you mean by the main support does ult planning? What does that mean?
So like he'll not ult planning. I'm planning the fight. He's not planning it. He's just saying like they have this. Let's look to use this, and then I go off of that and I make the plan. That's not happening consistently though. You're gonna notice it. You're gonna just hear me like calling everything.
So he goes, they have these ultimates, we have like May ult, and then you go, okay, let's wait until they push through this choke, and then we'll May ult them.
Exactly. That's what we're looking to do, basically. Yeah.
Can you and then the main tank, he does the target calling.
Yeah, and he's not very good at it. So.
Okay. Can you
it gets to the point. Yeah.
Can you think of why that doesn't work?
Why? Okay, so you're saying
what are the so it's like completely wrong. Pretty much the only correct part is that the main support tracks ultimates. Everything else is completely incorrect. But I want you to figure out why. Just go through it step by step. So why does that not make any sense? Why is that not optimal?
so. I think maybe it needs to be like a little bit like more input from people as far as like how they're using the ults. Maybe like when they go to use it, pressing it like they should like it should be like more on them, not like me like micromanaging it. And I don't know if it's necessarily wrong. Like, is it wrong? Is the part wrong that the flex support is planning or IGLing?
It's not about the flex support. It doesn't matter who does it. The problem is that someone is micromanaging someone else.
Okay.
That should never happen. So
Okay,
if
good.
your May has her Blizzard, why would the flex support like be honest with yourself? How are you supposed to know how to use May ultimate if you've never played her in a scrim? Like
Yeah, that's a good point.
no clue. And it's the same thing with every other ultimate. So the way that you do it normally, okay, so this is how comm structure works. You usually have one ult tracker, usually the main support, just because main supports kind of have the best, like they're not as mechanically demanding, so they can focus on this easily. It's not that good. Like theoretically the flex support could do it as well, but Ana is very high APM, so you're busy doing a lot of stuff.
Exactly. Like it's so much harder while playing Ana to fucking do this.
Which is why the flex support doesn't really talk at all. Pretty much here's how comms work. So you have the main support, he does just ult tracking. He doesn't do anything else. Between fights he just tells everyone to shut up, and then he goes, they have this. That's it. They have
Okay.
they have Shatter Bomb, Blizzard. They just use beat. So that's all he has to say. It takes 5 seconds. Then once the main support has done the ult tracking, that's when the main tank does what you're doing right now. So the main tank, he's your team's frontline. He's the one who decides where fights are happening. That is not your responsibility, because you, as a flex support, should have no clue. Because when you're doing pathing, you're essentially telling your main tank, hey, go there, and then go there, and then go there. And that's micromanaging, which sucks because you can't see things from his perspective, so you can't really always take all factors into account, and there's always going to be a delay.
Okay.
And he's going to be a lot more experienced in that regard anyways, especially just from comp. Like, he knows where fights should be taken, or at least he should know. So after the main support does ult tracking, the main tank player talks about how he wants to take the fight. So that includes a lot of that stuff needs to be prepared beforehand. So ideally, outside of scrims, you guys should just go into a custom game over and hop on a map that you're not good at, that you are kind of that you usually lose when you scrim. And then you work your way through all of the maps that you're bad at, and you just talk about where do we want to hold by default, where do we want to fall back to, where do we want to take fights. And then the main tank, he doesn't formulate plans as much as he recalls them and reminds the rest of the team. So the way that it works is a high level is like, hey guys, remember, we're going to hold this high ground. If they dive us, then we're going to fall back to point. If they walk up the stairs, we're just going to run into them. That sort of stuff. The more you prepare as a team, the more efficient your comms actually get. Because if your Reinhardt has to, every single game, dynamically come up with a plan, for one, it means your plans are always going to be different and inconsistent. So you can't consistently practice one thing because there always changes. And it's just more stress for everyone involved because they can't anticipate what's going on. But if you just execute something that you've already planned beforehand, then it's a lot easier to be confident. So if you guys play on this high ground, for example, there's at the start you guys were kind of looking at what comp they were running, and then you said, okay, they're on dive, right? And at that point, everyone on the team should know exactly what to do, because it's something that you guys have talked beforehand. How do you guys want to play this comp against dive? How do you want to play it when they jump like up on you? Do you guys want to fall back to point, or do you guys just want to fight them? What if someone is in the stairs? Maybe you all just rush in and you run whoever is in the stairs over, right? Do you want to play slow and just farm for ultimates? Do you want to focus the main tank, or do you want to focus the Genji? Like, those things are really, really important, because the more of that stuff you prepare, the easier it'll be to quickly, decisively react to it without any hesitation once you're actually in game. But when you guys just play the game like normal, and then all of a sudden people start jumping in, like there's a Hammond all of a sudden, right? Everyone should ideally know how to react to this immediately, right? But that doesn't happen. Like, you sleep him, and then he immediately wakes up because someone shot him, and then when you try to nade him,
he's already gone.
Him out of the nade.
Exactly.
So this is like, do you see how chaotic, and like you guys are all just screwing each other over?
Yep.
Because this is a situation that you guys haven't talked about before. But it's something, it's not even Hammond specific. This is something you guys have to just talk about. So you're playing against a dive comp. How do we react when someone is up here, right? If you guys talk about it beforehand, okay, let me first try to sleep, and then we can try to one-shot them, then everyone knows it, right? Then people know, okay, we shouldn't, because you, in your mind, you're like, this Hammond is feeding, we can kill him. But your Lucio was like, oh shit, Hammond's in, I need to boop him away. That's all.
Yeah, that was insane. Like, I didn't even really like. I was like, how the fuck did he not? Like, I'm rewatching it. Like, how did he not get naded? Like, and you just said, like, I didn't even like. You heard it obviously, and then I realized when we slowed it down, like, yeah, he just completely booped him out of my fucking nade, and we couldn't kill him.
Exactly, and that's a problem. And then you guys chase after him, but you also don't. Like, do you see how you guys are turning around all of a sudden?
Yeah.
So now you're rotating back to the point, and because someone is touching. But why does the entire team need to go to the point because one person is touching? Isn't that a little bit like you're giving up space? So the way that high level teams would do this is how?
You'd send one person to contest, and we'd keep the space
exactly.
up top.
Usually you just put the diva on the point, and then she plays like if she's low HP. She plays on this side so that you can heal her from the stairs.
Okay,
So
so
you
now
guys, Mhm.
is that like a fluid thing? Like if I'm in another situation, it's like okay, one person's contesting, Diva go. You know, I
Yeah,
can be like, yo,
so
Diva
that's
go,
usually
go,
the default
like
role
whatever.
for a diva. Like if one
Got it.
person, if there's like a tracer or a sombra or something stupid on the point, the diva is the one to buy you guys time, essentially.
Well, while we're sitting in this frame, I just have a question.
Yes.
What? So like obviously this rollout's a little bit longer, so this is like maybe a bad example, but like I feel like there's a ton of situations where I'm just like, yo, Brig is better here, but like my team is like, no, let's play standard.
I mean, what does Brig do?
Brig AoE heals. She has like kind of an ult that is can be used in an offensive or a defensive situation. She can stun the dive.
The
There's a couple
problem,
things,
the,
and
the
like,
problem with Brig is that you don't actually have any sustained healing. So if someone touches the point and your diva has to contest, what are you going to do as Lucio Brig? Because the problem with Brig
no, I mean
is,
Anna Brig.
oh, you want to play Anna Brig? No,
Yeah.
you can't do
Okay.
that. The reason you can't run this comp without a Lucio is because you have Mei Reinhardt, and they're
Okay.
completely useless without a speed boost. Like this
Got it.
might not be something you think about too much as a flex support, but like your main tank especially, he really just needs the speed boost. Like playing Reinhardt without speed boost is pretty much impossible because you're never
Okay.
going to get anywhere. So you 100% need the Lucio. Also, Lucio is beat. If you run a Brig Ana, like you don't really have any answers to big ultimates.
Yeah, you just die.
And
Just feed.
another problem is you can't really replace the Lucio with a Brig because the Brigitte also needs a Lucio. Like you're playing
Okay.
against a dive comp. If the enemy team is playing smart, then they're just going to jump on the point and completely ignore you. And because you guys don't have speed boost, like there's nothing to worry about. It'll take you ages to actually get anywhere. So it's very difficult for Brigitte, Reinhardt, and Mei to do anything without a Lucio speed boost. So the Lucio speed boost here is completely mandatory. The only time you don't run Lucio is when you have a comp that doesn't want to move anyways. So for example, if you're playing a map that's less open. So if you're on first point Hanamura defense,
First, okay. Or like, what about like first point King's Row?
or first point King's Row, exactly, both of them work. Where there's like
Okay.
one main choke that the enemy team has to push
Yep.
through. There you
And good
don't-
corners for Brig. Because I called that last night and they were like, what? And I was like, just trust me. And we full held.
So on maps like King's Row or Hanamura first defense, it works because there's one choke, so you never actually need to rotate or run in. The enemy team has to run into you. But in any
Okay, cool.
situation where the enemy team can ignore you, you kind of need the Lucio to catch up with them. So on King's Row, they need to run into you. On Hanamura, they need to run into you. But right here, if you guys are playing on the high ground, they don't need to do anything. They can just get on the point without having to deal with you guys at all. At which point you would need the Lucio. So that's number one. Or if you have a comp that intrinsically just doesn't want to move. So any sort of Orisa comp doesn't need a Lucio.
Okay,
But
cool.
if you ever play a comp that actually needs to move around, you just like you can't play it without a Lucio. It's just too, I guess, integral to how the comp actually works. So getting back to what we talked about earlier, at this point, like this is already kind of over because you want to keep the high ground for your Ana as much as possible. So ideally, the diva contests, and then she contests on the point, and you can heal her from the stairs. And you want to buy yourself as much time as possible. It's not even about like winning and getting a pick because you need to understand the matchup. So they're playing dive. Dive is really, really good at just jumping in and getting a quick pick and getting a numbers advantage, right? So the reason why you would go on point here, like the enemy team is doing, is to draw someone away from the team, to kind of split the team up. And that means that someone is going to be isolated, that they can dive and they can kill. What dive?
Yeah, because they want that high ground that we were just standing in, or the opposite high ground. So
Exactly.
really, they just baited the fuck out of us, and they just got it all for free.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys just what they're really bad at though is sustained fights. So what they can't do is so them getting on the point is kind of a bluff. Because they can get on the point to touch, but they can't actually stay there. Like whoever is touching the point right now from the enemy team, he can do that for like 5 seconds until he's eventually just kind of going to die, or he needs to get off the point. So they're essentially baiting you. All you need to do is just put a diva down there, and she buys you some time, and then the enemy team can't do anything because they need some opportunity to actually go in and kill someone. Because dive comms are terrible at long sustained fights. Whereas your comp with the Ryan and the Ana and the Mei, you guys are really, really good at sustained fights because
As
they're
long as I'm
longer-
positioned correctly.
Exactly, because over the course of the fight, your guys' healing is just going to be much higher, and you get a lot more opportunities to do stuff with your abilities. Right? The longer the fights are, the more often you'll have nade, sleep, Mei wall, McCree flashbang, etc. And you also have the much stronger like ultimate team. So Mei ultimate, for example, is just an instant fight win. The problem is Mei, like it's balanced around her ultimate. So when she doesn't have her ultimate, she isn't that great. Which means that right now your main goal should be to just waste as much of their time as possible. And then once you guys start getting ultimates, you can kind of get into a rhythm where you just throw 1 or 2 ultimates at them every single fight, and they
Yeah,
just can't
see,
do anything.
that happens organically sometimes, and it happens on maps where, so like first point Hollywood, right? If I'm defending, the way that I call it for them is split them as they come in, ICC them, and just drawn out fights and funnel them, and then our Mei will get an ult, or some ults will come up, and we'll invest like 1 to 2 ults into each fight and just hold it. Usually, like we full hold that map more than any other map. It's so weird, and I think it's just because yeah. No, go.
It's just about finding a way that you can have an advantage. You don't want to take fights when the enemy team has an advantage. So if they jump in for a few seconds, for like 5 seconds after they jump in, when they have all of their cooldowns, they're going to have an advantage over you. But once those cooldowns run out, you have the advantage because then the fight drags on.
Yeah. So the main focus really is just get as much value as possible out of each button that we're pressing and be standing in the right spot, right? That's the goal of the game. That's how you win.
Understand. I mean, pretty much, but you have to understand how your comp works to understand how you can get the most value out
And
of
that's honestly honest feedback for like self-observation. That's where I'm lacking the most. I'm also lacking a lot with like calling swaps and swapping. Like if it's dive, do I go Moira? Because I've heard that.
It's
like
really depends on what kind
on
of
the
dive
dive,
you're running.
like
If you're
Doom
running,
dive, definitely, obviously.
for Doom dive, you want a Moira. Yeah, if you're running Genji
It's
dive,
good for
Ana
Genji
is
too,
fine.
kind of. Yeah, but like I shit on Genji, so like, is like it can go either way. I feel like.
No, I mean
I
if
don't
you
know.
have a Genji on your team, then just having
Ah,
for him is
yeah, of
fine.
course, I'm saying if I'm facing Doom dive, obviously Moira. If I'm facing Genji dive, Moira is also good. Like,
No. You need to. You never really pick for the enemy team. Counterpicking isn't really a thing in Overwatch.
okay,
Counterpicking happens team comp wide. So one comp can counter another comp. Right?
so it has to be a group thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for example, during Goat's meta, Bastion comps countered it. Right? If you played a Bastion comp on Lombani defense and the enemy team tried running Goats, like they're forced to swap. It is physically impossible for them to win that.
If it's played like to its fullest.
Exactly. If you just don't feed, if they get on the point, you just melt them. What are they supposed to do? So that's a counter, but obviously that comp doesn't work because then the attacking team just swaps off goats to like Pharah or something, and then you just
get
die.
fucked. Yeah.
But comps can counter other comps, but characters never really counter other characters. So you shouldn't say, oh, they have a Doomfist, I'm gonna go Moira. You need to look at what your team comp actually needs, like what they
Even if I'm
want
like,
from you.
even if I'm feeding on Ana, like even if I'm just like no value, just like
In a scrim, when you're feeding individually, that is never a character issue. That's always like a team-related issue.
okay,
Because they need to help you. And you need to tell them how they can help you.
okay,
Now, so your main goal is here to just stall, get ultimates, which kind of brings us to the next point regarding communication. Everyone, so main support is ultracking. The main tank decides, or he reminds everyone of where fights are going to be and when you guys are going to rotate where. Everyone
Excuse
is
me.
responsible for their own ultimates.
okay,
The Lucio is responsible for when he's going to use beat. The Mei is going to be responsible for when she uses her ultimate. And by responsible, I mean they need to prep everything and communicate that with their team. I have my Mei ultimate in 10. I'm going to wait until they get on the point, and then I'm going to use it. Try to save your nade for when I blizzard or something like that. Kind of a rough example, but it's their responsibility. The most important parts are, where am I going to use my ultimate? When am I going to use my ultimate? What the fuck do I need you guys to do so that my ultimate actually kills stuff?
okay. So I'm writing it down because I'm a boomer. But hold on one second.
You're 29. You're very far away from being a boomer.
My 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old teammates would call me a boomer for writing it down. All right,
Um,
so say that. Just repeat that last like little Like the where, when,
Okay,
why.
so,
Repeat that.
so where the ultimate is going to be used. So I'm going to use
And this is the person that has the ultimate's responsibility.
exactly. Everyone communicates their own ultimate. No one should have to plan someone else. This isn't kindergarten. So where? So I'm gonna ult this choke. When is usually a trigger. So you don't just want to go, oh, I'm gonna ult in 10 seconds. Obviously that doesn't work. It's always some sort of condition that needs to be met.
Yeah, like okay, Mei wall's down, do this, or my Mei
Exactly.
wall's up, I'm gonna D.Va's walled, let's mail it, like shit like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
The only time you really want to use a timer is on proactive plays. So if you're playing dive, your Winston can do
Sombra
a
ult.
timer on when to jump in, or Sombra ultimate. Even Sombra ultimate, you don't really want to put on a timer. It's better to put that on a condition. So,
Okay. Like a good hack and then go.
exactly. So for example, the condition for Sombra EMP is when our Winston jumps in, I'm going to EMP. Or when I hack their Reinhardt, I'm going to EMP. Or when they push through that choke, I'm going to EMP. But it needs to be some sort of condition or trigger so that everyone can recognize it. Everyone goes, oh, now they went through the choke. Now we can go in. Okay?
So it's
Mhm.
person that has the ult is saying where it's being used, when they're using it, and how they're using it, and how I can help them use it. So how can I enable them?
Exactly.
And how I can enable them.
Right.
How my team can
Yeah,
enable.
like
How
the last
team
point
can
is usually optional. That's stuff that you kind of talk about beforehand. So, for example, during the meta with Orisa Sigma Doomfist, you would obviously want to try to go for pull Doomfist ultimates, but that's not something that needed to be explicitly said. It's just something that you practice, and then the
Yeah, it
Orisa
just becomes a
knows.
thing.
Exactly.
Synergy.
Then it's called a set play. It's something that doesn't. You want everything to be as prepared as possible. Ideally, the only calls that you want to hear during a team fight are important cooldowns being used and target calls. So if Moira uses her fade, that's something you can call. If you want to kill their monkey, then you can call monkey. What you don't want to have to do is call rotations during the fight, plan ultimates during the fight, any of that stuff. All of that stuff should ideally be talked about beforehand, right?
Okay,
If
we're
you're-
scuffed then.
I mean, that's kind of how most
Yeah.
OD teams are right now.
Okay.
The reason why this is so important is because during the team fight, everyone needs to focus on actually doing what they're supposed to do. So you want everyone's life to be as easy as possible, and the way that you do that is by keeping comms as simple as possible, so everyone can just focus on their mechanics, right? So if someone has to plan their ultimate during a fight, then that's obviously very, very distracting. Right? But if during a team fight, all that's really happening is just people shouting hero names and then calling the odd cooldown, like, oh, Moira used Fade, and then everyone knows, oh shit, she used Fade, then we can kill her.
So there's a lot of like situational things that I notice, and like I want to know if I should like. Obviously, I'm still gonna con this way just because like I have like something that other people can't recognize certain things. Like so, there's a fight like we're playing Basan, the point where like it's lower down and the teams come from each side. Like I forget what it's called. I forgot which one it is.
You mean downtown?
I think so. Yeah, the one that like the point is like down. It's like all the side of the map is like you can get booped off the left side of it.
Oh, you mean mecha base?
Yeah.
Mecha base.
No. It's set up like mecha base. The other one that's set up like that, but it's just smaller.
Oh, then you mean downtown, the one with the train.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So downtown, right? We're playing. We're on downtown. It's like where it's the end of the. It's like it's getting really to the bitter end. McCree has his ult. He didn't recognize the fact that our Sombra was getting their ult. Our Sombra was about to have her ult. So I looked at the ults and I called. I was like, "Yo, pop your McCree ult just to zone them, and then we EMP win." If I didn't call that, we don't do it. You know what I'm saying? So like that's why like I feel like I need to be involved because I have the ability to like see when shit's gonna happen and know how to use the ults better than they're just gonna do. Because maybe I'm just better. I don't really know what the fuck it is, but
Again,
the ability to realize.
The problem is you're not doing your team any favors by doing that. So if you
It's like scrim bucks.
Yeah, like if you feel like you have to do your teammate's job for them, then I'm not really sure why you're in the team. Like the most important part of a team is trust. Like everyone needs to be able to trust that the other person is reliable and can do their job, right? So in that situation, if the Sombra feels, right, so that's something that the Sombra needs to figure out. Hey, and it's a suggestion that you can give her. outside of the game. You can go, hey, by the way, whenever we play Sombra McCree, what do you think of using McCree ultimate to zone them to set you up for an EMP? And then she can share her thoughts. Like, I think that, it's kind of a waste of a McCree ultimate. Don't worry about it. I can just set up this ultimate on my own. Or maybe she goes, oh, okay, yeah, maybe this is something we can try to see if it works out. And then she talks to the McCree player and says, hey, I might ask you to use your McCree ultimate at certain times. Even if it seems odd, just do it, because when I call it, I can get like a really good EMP off of it.
Yeah, it was just like something that like honestly, bro, our flex DPS, the person who plays May for us, we're in the process of like replacing them. We're pretty close to doing it. I think we tried out a couple of people. Like he just, bro, he doesn't calm. Like it's scuffed, bro. They're I don't know. He doesn't talk much. So like I'm literally like playing my hero and like watching him and like it's bad. Like
Right, that's fine, but don't focus too much on him. Like what he's doing isn't really your problem. Like the only thing, here's one of the most important lessons. Like on your path to pro, good players always get noticed. Like people, it's a lot like high school, where everyone talks about everyone. Like everyone is talking about each other behind their backs. It's a little like cringe, but it does the job very well, where every player has a reputation. Like everyone just knows, okay, this guy's good, this guy's bad, this guy's been hard stuck, this guy tilts. So you shouldn't really worry too much about him, because if anything, he's just going to make you look better. Like there have been a lot of cases in traditional sports where some players have been on really shit teams that just lost a lot, but they still were known to be really good players because their teammates just kind of made them look good. And they were the best out of the bunch. So you shouldn't really worry about what your team is doing. The only thing that you need to worry about is just playing as best as you can. Because if you play well, then people are going to know that you play well. You're not really going to get anywhere by going, oh, well, like this guy is kind of bad. I think it's better if we replace him. That's something that your coaches or your managers or something can deal with. If you think that someone on the team is bad, to the point where you just don't enjoy playing with them, or you feel like it hampers your own improvement, that's something you can bring up. You can say like, hey, I feel like, I'm not really improving as much because our DPS lineup isn't as coordinated. That's fine, right? And then you can leave. But you shouldn't make that your number one priority. And then your only priority is being good. And if you ever feel like, hey, I'm good enough to get on a better team, then why don't you just do that? Then you might as well just leave and then look for a better team.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, all right. I mean, we have a really actually like the team that I'm on. Like, the reason I was so like the allure of it was that it's so structured. Like, they have really good staff in place. They know what they're talking about. Like, they're really on top of their shit. It's scheduled perfectly. Like, I don't have to do a thing. So like, and I never have to worry. Like, if we know we're scrimming at this time, there will be a scrim. There will be a lobby. There will be someone watching us like live coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So like that to me was like huge. Like when I saw that, and like because when I've tried to find it, it's like rough. And like you're looking for a team, I don't really know anyone, so it's like I have to just go like fucking try out for a bunch of random teams,
Of course, at the start it's always going to be a little bit tough. Eventually it'll be easier. I wouldn't put too much value on the stuff that like the whole structure and everything. That stuff isn't super relevant where you're at right now. Your main focus really needs to be like play as best as you can. Because that way the people on your team, and more importantly, the people that you play against, will start to recognize you. And from that, opportunities arise where you can actually get into better teams. And then eventually you're going to be on a team good enough to where you can win OD or whatever it is you want to do, and then move up into contenders. And obviously where it leads is up to you. But the main focus is really just you being like as good as possible, even if this team is just a stepping stone. Because once you get into high tier 3, like stuff like management and coaching, like that is kind of the norm there, and it's not really that difficult to like manage scrims. So I wouldn't look at it like, oh, this organization is so organized, like we scrim consistently. Like that is the absolute bare minimum. And if you're good enough to join a top OD team, then you shouldn't, like, obviously people always cancel and weird stuff happens, but you should be able to consistently scrim.
Yeah, well, the people that you're playing against, it's a smaller pool, so like,
Exactly.
and everyone's seemingly more dedicated. I mean, bro, honestly, like, I am at the point where it's like I'm kind of like I'm very new to this whole competitive scene, and it's like already evolved. So it's like I'm kind of like grasping at straws with certain things, and like just to be honest, like the teams I was trying out for were so fucking scuffed, and like the first team I was on was so bad that like when I found it was like an oasis. You know what I mean? Like I was like, holy shit, people actually do this. So what you're saying is that this exists a lot beyond. This isn't an anomaly. Like this is all over the
Exactly,
place.
like shit teams kind of
Okay.
weed themselves out. So I like obviously there are a lot of bad teams, but you're going to face a lot less of them the higher you go. It's really just that you've just started out with the whole path to pro thing, so you don't exactly, you're not going to attract the attention of any good teams, really, until you've proven yourself, obviously. So you need to get
Yeah,
to that
so-
point first.
So OD, if it goes well with this team and I get to like playoffs, then like the tighter knit group of people will be like, if they're looking for a fucking flex support, we'll just scroll through the rosters and hit everyone
like,
up.
teams are always like perma disbanding, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I know.
So it's really just about building a good reputation, and the only way you can build a good reputation is just by knowing what you're doing and being competent. And you don't sound like someone who would have any trouble selling himself, so I'm not really
Yeah,
too
it's not-
concerned about that. I would just focus on like knowing what you're doing, right? So the whole communication thing, for example, right? That's something that's worth bringing up because it affects you. Ideally, you want to be prepared. Like there are a lot of open division teams whose communication is kind of embarrassing, and
Yes.
that doesn't prepare them. Like they're like, "Ooh, why am I not in an academy yet?" Well, because when they trial for an academy team, they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about, right? So they're not ready for that at all. But so it's in your best interest to be on a team that has decent communication, because right now you're forced, and this is going to sound kind of harsh, you're forced to babysit and micromanage people and kind of doing their jobs for them. And in the end, that's kind of your fault, because you're the one who, you know, is going along with this. If you're focused on your own improvement, then you should focus on like actual flex support communication. And the only real communication that you have to do as a flex support is talk about how you want to use your ultimate. And like that's pretty much, and target calling. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like, you know, maybe calling specific abilities like Baptiste's Immo field, but that's really it. You shouldn't have to do any big macro planning or strategy or ult tracking or whatever. That's what the rest of the team does. So overall, it's main support does ult tracking, main tank does pathing and kind of reminding everyone of the plan, and then everyone does target calling. Everyone is responsible for their own ultimate and preparing it and strategizing it and communicating that with their teammates. And everyone is responsible for info calls. So info calls are Moira doesn't have fade, Diva behind us, those kinds of calls. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Are you ready to get back to the VOD?
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, like this position just sucks. You guys are just kind of being surrounded.
It's the opposite of what we should be doing. The
Yeah,
Diva's up top and we're down there.
You want to make it as difficult, like the point kind of needs to be made of lava. Like the enemy team shouldn't be able to get on there. But this right now, what you're doing is terrible. Like as Ana, you should never have to look up. It's just not
Okay.
super good. So yeah, ideally you want to try to stay on that high ground as long as possible. Let the Diva contest if necessary. It's good that you guys are rotating back at least.
I'm pinning.
Ping
Ball,
ball.
ball, everybody get ball. Help
Okay,
her, help
ball.
her.
Ball low.
Purple. Yeah, Genji. Sombra's on right side.
Watch ball.
Left, purple.
See again. What are you supposed to do when you sleep someone like this?
Call it out, let my Mei freeze them, then purple them.
It's not about the Mei freezing them. It's about your Reinhardt pinning them.
Okay.
If you're
And he's right there. He was going for it too, like it looks like.
If your Rein pins him, then that gives your Mei enough time to freeze him, and then you just nade him and he's dead.
Okay.
So, like, this is a free kill that you kind of threw away by just
pinning.
nade.
Ping.
Like,
Ball,
he still
everybody ball.
got the pin, but that's pretty close. You don't want to cut it that close.
Ball low. Sombra behind on point. Shooting you. On his main.
Yeah, again, you guys are on point. This is terrible. Because now you have to deal with people coming from all directions, and that just makes your life so much more difficult.
Yeah, and it was really my fault because if I would have just let him pin, we would have been able to rotate back to high ground. We wouldn't have like
Ideally,
ran
that
to
would have
point.
been the play. Like, you guys need to get out of the
Yeah.
habit of all playing together.
Someone
It's
right
fine
side
to let one person
ball,
touch the
ball,
point, and
ball,
that means
ball.
that the rest of the team is good positioning. Because this right now is a shit shot. Like, this is
Diva,
sort
Diva,
of...
I think we may win. No, we don't win this.
I don't know,
No
it's
way.
You're playing
Give it the
against
ball now,
dive.
ball, ball, ball.
The more chaotic the fight,
Ball, ball, ball.
the better it is for a dive comp. You want your McCree and your Ana. Like, the way this comp works is you need to find high ground and then put your
There's
Ana and
Sombra now.
McCree on top.
Yeah.
And then just let
Oh,
them
yeah,
free
but-
shoot.
Massive.
Also, I think one of your teammates is like 7 years old.
No, it's just our it's one of our managers had to play because our main support was late.
Your manager is 6 years old?
No, she's a chick.
Oh!
It's a girl, yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's out.
Should I just switch over to Sombra now?
So some. Oh, yeah, but. Massive. Oh, never mind.
Are you sure? Oh my god.
Positive, yeah. I've seen her on
Ameri-
Instagram.
I'll never get American voices.
Sombra, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with their balls.
I was
Just
so
punish
confused.
just when they come in, just try and get a shatter bomb.
I mean, obviously, I don't have to tell you that playing with a manager is always a terrible idea.
I'll just throw
I
it
speak
in.
from
Yeah.
first-hand experience. I've had
Probably
multiple
just throw it at
cases
someone.
where we needed to do that and it never works.
Someone's far. She probably has her EMP.
Okay. So this
I'm
is
just
pretty
going
much
left
the
side.
same thing. Your diva just
Might as well
contests
own
when
left.
someone gets on
Your
the
diva's
point. You and McCree, you guys just want to stay on the high ground as long as possible. The Lucio can peel for you.
Throwing it right
Oh god, you guys are so dead.
I'm on. Genji.
Yep.
I don't think.
I think we may.
Oh, left. I can shout.
I don't know. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
We may not lose this. I can't remember.
Shout Diva. Shout
Yeah, we
Diva.
win this.
Fighting in front of your spawn, so that's fine.
Shout Diva.
You swap to Moira.
Sombra right. Sombra right.
Yeah, because I thought I was gonna have to get back fast.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't expect it to just go well.
Yeah, you don't have to worry too much about going back fast there,
Ball in,
because
ball
you're
in,
right
ball-
in
ball
front of
stop
your spawn
right.
anyways.
I'm on point.
But it's fine. You should ideally just swap back, because Moira doesn't
I don't
do
think I
anything
do.
for this comp. Oh,
I don't
no.
think I do.
Moira doesn't do anything for this comp. Moira is good. Okay, so what's the main reason you'd want to go Moira? Like, what is the main advantage that she has over all the other supports?
Really, they're really good escape and really big AoE healing.
Exactly. And what does the really good escape allow her to do that other supports can't do?
Reposition on the fly and not die to anything ever.
Exactly. And that allows her to play very aggressive.
Yes.
Right, if you're playing with a team that wants to run in and you're playing Ana, by the time your team runs around the corner, you have two options. Either you just stare at the wall, or you run after them and probably die. Moira can stay with her team even when they're aggressive. That's the main advantage.
And I'm like durable too, like super fucking durable.
Exactly, so that's what
Okay.
allows her to be good with very aggressive. So when you have a Doomfist jumping in, when you have a Reinhardt speeding in those situations, Moira's really good. Moira sucks when you're in a situation like this, where, like, is this a team that really wants to just run in?
The comp that I'm
Your-
playing,
your
no,
team,
we want to
yeah.
play methodically
Exactly.
to win,
And-
to get value at least,
So
most
the,
value.
the main problem is, as Ana, the plan is pretty simple. You guys just set up on the high ground. When someone on the enemy team touches the point, then your Rhine Diva can drop, and then you can heal them from the high ground as Ana. As Moira, you can't do that.
Yeah, I have to
High
go with
ground
them.
is useless to you. You have no real utility at all. Like, all you have is just damage and healing. That's it. You have no sleeps, no anti-heal, no immortality fields, no speed boosts. Like, Moira just has healing and a little bit of damage. That's it. So you're not giving your team anything, and the moment that you drop from high ground to heal your teammates, your McCree has 0 healing. And he's going to be on high ground all by his own. So, yes, I hope you swap.
I
You will
don't.
not.
I definitely don't.
Like,
and I
what is
and I called the
Moira?
right thing too. It was just bad. Honestly, bro, I just
They use bomb,
I just-
Xenoblade, they
it
have
just
EMP,
wasn't
they
the
have
right.
Moira.
It was like a selfish play. I just wanted to not be. I don't know. I felt more confident being Moira.
I swear to God, I think your manager is screwing you over.
Why?
Wait.
They use bomb, they use Xenoblade, they have EMP, they have mines.
This does not sound... Like, it really, really sounds like a very, very young dude.
Mine.
I swear to God, it's a chick.
Okay, let's, Also, you have a Sombra now. Is there a reason why? You just feel like you can't get value out of the Mei?
I think he swapped. All right, so they have a Sombra, so he went Sombra.
Okay, but
That was it.
why,
I think
though?
it's as simple. I really, honestly, bro, like, it was just something that was called. I
The
didn't.
problem here, so I'm not disagreeing with the swap. That's fine. Whatever, like Sombra can work here. That's okay. The problem is, you have no idea why he swapped.
Yeah,
Do you think that's good?
he just did it because I think one of the coaches had told him if there's a Sombra, go Sombra.
Right, but do you understand why?
If there's a Sombra, why we go Sombra?
Yeah. Like, do you really understand the reason
No.
behind that?
Not fun. I mean, like, no. Other than the fact that we have the same like power
Right.
level with the
So,
ultimate.
so how the fuck are you supposed to play around that if you have no idea
Yeah,
why
exactly.
the swap even happens in the first place? Like, you guys are a team. It's not just one player and then he does all of, like, this fundamentally changes the team comp. The way that you hold this top left high ground completely changes. With a Mei, holding this top left high ground is super free. Because the enemy team can't push through. You just put a wall down. What are they supposed to do? So just by picking Mei, you force the enemy team to take one of the routes on the low ground. Right? Sombra fundamentally changes that. All of a sudden, the enemy team has the possibility of like pushing you guys on the high ground. And you're on Moira as well, which also changes how the team comp is placed. Because with Ana, it's fine if the team plays a little bit split. Ana is really good at healing teams that are split. With Moira, the team needs to play together. So if someone on the enemy team contests, you can't just send down the diva. Everyone has to drop together and fight around the point. But your team probably doesn't know that. And that's why, like, I swear to God, the main reason teams are hard stuck in tier 3 is not because the people individually like are bad mechanically. Honestly, I swear to God, I've seen tier 3 players with mechanics that are better than some all players. I'm not even joking. But they just have no real idea how comms work or how actually playing in a team works. Like making sure that everyone is on the same page and that whatever you guys are running, like the strategy actually makes sense. Because this, like,
I'm dropping now. I'm dropping now.
like what did this, like why did you need a Sombra to kill her there? Like your Sombra didn't really add much there.
Well, she added nothing besides like
I'm low ground right now.
Exactly.
an ult later.
And then you're kind of trying to keep people alive, but it's also not enough.
I have EMP.
He was low. He was low.
So yeah,
Yeah, come on.
not really a whole lot to say.
right side.
To be
Alright,
honest.
touching.
You're gonna die. Just press your EMP.
Yeah, no.
I'm slamming.
Huh.
Don't go that way.
Oh shit, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
You might as well go now.
No, it's just the fucking bombs.
Oh yeah, I mean, this team fight is like at this point you're just actually the bomb maybe.
No, I think we win this. Can't remember.
I mean, this is just deathmatch at this point.
Yeah.
Like whichever team, the main advantage you have is the kid fighting in
No,
front
we
of
don't
the
win
spawn.
this.
I'm slamming point.
But I'm not sure if
He's
it's
dead.
not. Maybe you can get the Lucio. Yeah, okay, you should be able to win this just because you're fighting right in front of your spawn. But the problem is fights like these are just mechanics, like whichever
Genji
team
on
just kills the other
Yeah, I'm
team
not going
faster,
Yana.
and that's not really a super good win condition.
Alright, I'm touching.
Actually,
On
you guys
Genji
are
right now.
kind of
Genji
flying.
right. On Genji right. Genji right. He's low.
Rose is a beast.
Don't see nine. Don't see nine.
He's really good. He's like one of those people that are like super mechanically good.
Give me your heals for a
Right?
beat.
So it would be
Yes.
pretty useful to play around people like that.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what you. Everyone just needs. The problem is you guys are going to swap picks. To stall picks, but then you don't swap back.
My issue there, like I literally said it. Like I said, all right, they're probably they're gonna be close to. They switched off of the Sombra, so first of all, I was just wrong and bad. But I knew we should have spread, but I should have switched. I shouldn't have stayed on Moira.
Yeah, you should have stopped. Your Tracer shouldn't be on Tracer right now. Your Hammond shouldn't be on Hammond. What the hell does Hammond do here? Okay, he swaps. Very good. At least one person on your team realized that, hey, maybe we should go back to the comp that, we originally played.
He was far right with ball.
Someone's right.
This is so
Even
the
ball
reason
is
you
far
guys
right.
are swapping. It's important to understand kind of the heart of the issue, why this is happening. The reason you guys are swapping this randomly is because you guys don't understand the original comp. Because when you understand how to defend this point with Maywall properly, how to abuse the high ground with McCree and Ana, then you guys wouldn't have swapped.
Okay.
Because the moment you swap, you change the original comp, right? When you change your Mei to a Sombra, that swap wouldn't happen if you guys actually understood why Mei is good there,
Got it.
right? So at this point, you guys are just going to fight team fight after team fight, and then when something doesn't work, someone just
Yeah.
swaps, and obviously that's not going to get
This
you guys anywhere.
obviously there's fundamental stuff going on, but this roster that's in this game right now is our manager is on board, and the kid Stone was a tryout that like advertised he was something and then didn't have an account to show us.
Let me get this healing for me.
So the kid that's playing Sombra is that guy.
Well, you probably shouldn't try to go for hero swaps when you're trialing.
They're gonna have EMP
Yeah.
Nanoblade. I have beat for EMP. I might hide. Oh, sorry. Or they have Nanoblade then.
I'm gonna go aggressive with my call.
Like what? Look, see, this is the problem. Moira is really good at playing aggressive, right?
Play them.
So
I'm gonna go
using Moira ult, using orb, like this combo is really good when your team just wants to run in. But like, does your Reinhardt want to run in here?
Well, I mean, I didn't say anything, so he probably didn't want to, but he does. Like he will.
Even
You know,
if you would
we'll
have
see.
said something, like
It's like
do you think
pointless.
it
They're
really-
regrouping, right?
Yeah, it would have just been you guys.
I really,
dying.
she called the nano. I mean, like she called the nano blade, so I was like, yo, let me just try and fucking kill this kid before he kills our whole team.
You're
Really,
Moira.
that's what it
At
was.
this point, your goal isn't to kill him.
I know.
If you're Ana, then you can sleep him maybe because you can't. How are you supposed to solo kill a Genji who's nano boosted?
You'll find out.
Okay, here's the
sorry,
problem.
sorry.
So
Sorry, they have
at this
Nanoblade.
point, right, you're entirely dependent. Okay, why does this make you vulnerable?
Why does this make me vulnerable? Because my Ryan shield is no longer down, and I can still be killed by blade when he pops it.
No, the reason this makes you vulnerable is because you can't fade while you're in your ultimate.
And yeah.
Right. So at this moment, like, so he messed up. Ideally, he shouldn't have dashed in first. The safer play would have been to just blade, so that he doesn't have to deal with the animation. Right. The only time that you do what you do, like what he did here, where he dashes in and then he ults, you only do that to gap close. But if you're already in front of the enemy team, you don't need to do that. You just blade behind cover so that when you go in, you can just start killing people immediately. Because he was stuck in the middle of your team, and he had to start the blade animation. Like this right here is just throwing.
Okay.
Actually, does he even
Yeah.
get nanoed?
No.
Yeah, he doesn't even get
Genji,
nanoed,
look.
right? So obviously that's just the enemy team being kind of garbage, which is understandable given that this isn't exactly
He's half.
top tier play.
Genji on Genji.
But
Just-
even
just
then,
get
it
you
was
right, get
still
you right.
enough because you can't fade.
Yeah, no, I've had yeah.
Like
I
this is not good.
Now he's nanoed, right?
Yeah.
Just get you right.
So yeah, you obviously can't kill him,
Bow one.
even though he messed up,
Genji right.
and then he can just kill you for free because you can't fade.
Easy.
This should have been where definitely should. No, I mean obviously I should have swapped a lot earlier, but now, especially since the blade is gone, it's like why am I even thinking about being Moira still?
You just use your every single time you use your ultimate. That's usually the best time to swap.
Mine's bomb.
Sometimes you go onto a stall pick and then you might play one extra fight just because you have your ultimate. Unless it's
Yeah,
like a
that
small
was the
ultimate.
original intention, but then I stayed.
Yeah, you just overstayed.
Yeah, they're bottom up, bottom up.
Okay.
Punch Diva. Diva. Almost have shatter.
Also, you guys are talking way too much during. Not talking way too much, but just listen to like how varied the vocabulary is during these team fights. About like how many
Yeah, they're bottom
sentences
up, bottom
there
up.
are.
Punch Diva. Diva. Almost have shatter.
Like the
Like
number
everyone's saying the same thing but a different way.
Yeah, and that's really confusing. It's hella confusing. It's like when people are talking in different languages, even though everyone understands all of the. Like if you have a bilingual team, that's like from Canada and everyone speaks English and French, right? But some guy calls something in French and the other guy calls the exact same thing in English. Like that's gonna get so confusing.
Yeah.
And that's why the number one rule, the number one rule of efficient communication in teams is don't have conversations during a team fight. The only thing that should be called here is like you guys need to talk like cavemen, essentially.
Yeah. Got it.
Like
I can
it's
just
really
echo.
just calling targets. That's it. Because if you guys need to talk about everything else is something that you should have talked about before the team fight. If you have to talk about it during the team fight, it's already too late.
I almost have shatter.
Skipping heals for us. I'm good.
Sombra.
No.
I'm playing ball.
Right? Like I'm going ball. Like why does anyone need that information?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right?
You're right.
Like it's called clutter. Like comms need to be efficient.
Like, just do it. Like,
a,
why
like
speak
a
about it?
machine. Exactly. That's why like teams aren't really. It's So if you look at two teams, right, and you have, it can be kind of difficult to tell how good they actually are from just their comms, because all of that stuff is just preparation and stuff that they've talked about before. Like, preparation is everything. You could have an Overwatch League level team and just force them to play without mics, and they would still beat you because all of the basics they just know. They're on the same page, they don't have to talk about it. Obviously, their target focus is going to be all over the place, because that's the stuff that you have to call dynamically, because target focus always changes.
It sounds weird, but like that's how you raid in WoW. No one talks. You just do the fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And recently, right, the raid meta actually changed, where the raid lead isn't even a player. The raid lead is just
Now, yeah. It's crazy.
Exactly, because that way the players can just focus on dealing with mechanics, and they can focus on their rotations, and you can just, usually the raid leaders suck because I mean, they don't have to filter themselves out. So that way, like, that's the most efficient way to be competitive. And that's also how Overwatch works, where the players, ideally, during a fight, they just call really simple stuff and all of the complex preparation that needs to be handled before. Like, you guys can scrim for months and not see any improvement, but when you guys just sit down together for 2 hours, I swear to God, sit down for 2 hours, open a custom game, go on Horizon, and then talk about why are we playing this comp, what's the point, and then
We
just
actually
go through
did that.
hypotheticals.
We did that right after this, but we did it to get better at dive because we realized how horrible we were. So we dry ran it against one of the lower teams. Like, we put them in there and we just did the first point like over and over, talked about like why we were doing what, how we wanted to dive. Like, it worked. I mean, it made us better. So
I mean, that's how you actually improve at this. Like,
Yeah.
scrimming doesn't actually help you improve. Scrimming is really just kind of as a proof of concept to stay warm. The majority of improvement actually happens outside of that.
all right, well, what you're saying is music to my ears because I thought I was fucking crazy because I said that we need to, like, our dive sucks, let's do that, and they were just like one of the people was like, let's just scrim, and I was like, dude, it's not if you're playing the game and it's not productive, you're gonna be the same no matter what.
I mean,
You have to go.
Like, that's what deliberate practice is. Like, you need to actually practice with a purpose, right? So the main point behind scrims are essentially like laboratories. They're like experiments, right? The point in them isn't actually to figure out how to play the game. It's outside of scrims, you figure out how you want to play the game, and then during scrims, you just test that stuff out, right? So maybe during the preparation, you go, okay, we're on Horizon. Let's say they have a Hammond, and he goes in. Okay, when he goes in, then I'm going to sleep him, and then Orion is going to pin him, and then we're going to freeze and nade him, and he's dead, right?
So, now, like, a structured way of doing that would literally just be like going on the comp we want to play, going to the area we want to be standing, and then saying, what do we do against this one? What do we do against this one? What do we do
and
against
it's
this
just about throwing as many. So getting better at Overwatch is, and this is going to be the most on point analogy you've ever heard. Okay, it's a lot like a crossword puzzle, right? So when you look at a crossword puzzle, it's kind of intimidating, right? Because all of the pieces need to fit together and there's a lot of shit. But what a lot of people don't realize is that at the start, a crossword puzzle is going to be fairly tough, right? Which is why you always want to go and fill out the easiest ones first. But the more you fill out the crossword puzzle, the easier it'll be to figure out the subsequent words, because some of the letters are already going to be there for you. Right?
Understood.
And Overwatch is pretty much the exact same way. So you go on that point, right? A very specific situation. Hanamura first point, we play the Mei McCree comp, and we're defending against, say, dive. And now everyone just goes into hypothetical mode. And you just start with a bunch of what ifs. Okay, guys, what if they send this guy there and then this guy there? What if they just go point? What if they just dive us? What if they run this character instead of that character? You guys just throw a bunch of what ifs at it, and then you figure out how to react to it until eventually you've have an idea of how to deal with every possible situation. And that's like filling out a bunch of those words in the crossword puzzle. And now you can use that knowledge and you can transfer a lot of it to other maps. Because a lot of the stuff that you learn on, say, when you're defending Horizon, why wouldn't that also apply to like defending Numbani? Like it's the same thing. There's a point and there's some high ground, so all of the stuff just transfers over. So by going over that one map and that one specific matchup, you learn stuff that you guys as a team can apply on every single map. And that's how you actually get better at a pace. But the problem is a lot of people are kind of lazy, and so they don't want to do that. They don't want to just go through these matchups and then think of hypothetical situations and talk about how to react to that. They just want to scrim, but that doesn't get them anywhere. Because then the enemy team throws a situation at them, and by the way that you figured out a protocol on how you want to react to that, it's already too late. And you're not actually going to get better of it. So a scrim isn't to find out what to do. A scrim is to see if what you want to do actually works. Right, so with the whole sleeping the Hammond thing, let's say that happens in a scrim, and you guys do it, but then for some reason it doesn't work. I have no idea why it wouldn't work, but let's say, I don't know, divine intervention, the Hammond just lives. In that case, you can now review that and then go, hey, you know, we did exactly as we planned, but we couldn't kill the Hammond and we still lost the fight. And then you can kind of reevaluate your plan. Right? And that's what, like, how getting better at a team comp actually works. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Okay, perfect. Well, we've kind of been at this for a while, so this is the part where you can bombard me with questions.
Okay. So, I mean, to be honest, bro, like everything you're saying to me, like I guess I'm not like typically you're probably dealing with people that are like a lot lower than I am, and like like everything you're saying is just sinking in. Like I get it. Like it makes a ton of sense. Like really, my takeaway would be, I need to speak to this team and make sure that like we need to devote one of these blocks, like instead of a VOD, because if we're just reviewing a shit scrim, there's no point. We need to go over these situations, like go into each map, go to the place where we're going to be standing, go on the comp we're going to be going to be playing, and say, okay, dive comp, the most meta version of it. This is what we do against this hero in this situation, and just make sure everyone's on the same page. Because then, like you said, it'll the comms will even get better because it won't be there'll be less of them. Right now, our problem is we're cluttering the comms. Right?
Yes.
That's one of the things you pointed out. So
Yes.
if the Hammond comes in and I sleep him and then my Ryan just charges him without me saying anything, obviously that's a better situation to be in.
Yes.
So that's a good example. That's my biggest thing right now. That's what I'm going to get back. I mean, we switched already to most of our scrims now are doubles. It's like 4 days a week doubles. So I think we should sprinkle in like one more day where we're literally like fucking practicing the shit out of it.
Just be honest with your team. Like just tell them, like, guys, right now, like most of the time I just don't know what we're supposed to do. Like I don't know how we as a team are reacting to certain situations, right? Don't make this a you versus them situations, right? You shouldn't go like, oh, you know, like you guys have no idea where to hold or you this or that. Like just say like, I want this team to succeed, but right now, like it just feels like we like all about like none of us really know what to do exactly in these situations. So can we maybe instead of, you know, doing that scrim against that really crappy team this Wednesday, maybe we can, you know, just sit down together in a custom game and maybe talk about how we actually want to play this comp and what we want to do. Because it's like, if you had the choice, can you still hear me? Hello?
Misclicked, my bad.
Okay. I thought I disconnected.
I heard you though. What we want to do is the last thing I heard.
So what you want to do is, if you had the choice between scrimming for like, I don't know, Jesus Christ, like 20 hours a week, right? But doing no review at all, and scrimming 10 hours, but doing 2 hours of review, like the latter is always going to help you improve just a billion times.
Well, yeah, I
faster.
mean, the way I view it is it's about productivity. Like, if I'm playing the game for 20 hours, but it's square pegs into round holes the whole time, I'm not going to retain anything. I'm going to be tilted at the end of it. But if I'm playing the game for 5 hours productively, and what I mean by productively is like practicing things with the same group of people that I went over them with and executing them and then reviewing them if they suck, and just that kind of level, like productive, like being productive, like a productive scrim, those hours are more valuable, obviously. So that's what I'm trying to like explain. Like I've played, like I said, like I learned this in Counter-Strike because I played it at a higher level. Like when you practice, like you in Counter-Strike, it's a game where you scrim a lot more than you scrim in Overwatch. Like a scrim, there's no such thing as a block. You play fucking 10 scrims, right? But before you do that, you play one map per week. You practice your strats dry for like a day, then you go scrim. So I don't know if I should try and take the same approach with this, where like we're picking a map on a weekly basis and just practicing the shit out of it and like double blocking, making sure we scrim it twice, like, or even like getting like once we expand the team to the B, like having the other roster to play against, like devoting a day to where we go over what we want to do against each hero and each comp in any given situation on that map, then scrimming our B team over and over until we get it down, then getting a scrim the next day. Like,
I mean, that's pretty much what academy teams do with Overwatch League teams.
okay.
Like when I was on NYXL's academy team or Boston's academy team, we did that fairly regularly, where we would they would just tell us what map to run and what comp to run, and then we would just do it for them, just so they could practice specific strats. I wouldn't do it on like a fixed schedule, so not like 1 week per map, because sometimes you just don't take that long. Like ideally, you want your progress to be a little bit faster.
No.
Usually, like you spend those 2 hours. Honestly, what I did on my last team was we had 2 hours, and we had like 3 or 4 of those, and we managed to go through the entire map pool. It's really just when do we want to hold, when do we want to take fights, and like my job there is kind of easy because it's not really about telling them what to do. It's just kind of being like a moderator, almost just kind of guiding the conversation so that everyone can kind of share their input on how they want to fight that specific point. And then eventually everyone just knew how to play that point and nothing surprised us, and then scrims were just kind of free, right?
Yeah.
So you want to ideally do the same thing, right? So figure out first of all what map you're the worst on. Like which map do you guys just repeatedly lose? Go into a custom game for like an hour or two. At the start it'll probably take a bit longer because you guys are just going to be inefficient as heck. And you just go over the map and you figure out all of the possible situations that could happen. And then you just try to scrim that map as often as possible. Usually most scrim blocks, map choice alternates. So you get to choose a map, then they get to pick a map. Make sure that you just get that map in every single scrim block, and then just see whether it improves. And then once you feel confident on that map, you then go over to the next worst map and so on. Because some maps you're just going to be naturally good at, right?
Yeah.
A lot of teams, for example, are just naturally good at King of the Hill maps. They don't need any preparation for them. They just DM their way to victory. Obviously, that's not a high priority map, so you can just go to the maps that you suck at. And usually it's like, you know, people don't usually suck at the majority of the maps. Usually it's like 40%, 30 to 40% of the maps that they're really bad at. You just want to get those out of the way because that already ramps up your average win rate to super high levels.
Yeah.
So
for some reason, we're like, it's really, really random. We're a Hollywood team. Like, we do not lose on that fucking map. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just...
And that's completely fine, but that just means that on Hollywood, like, you don't need to worry about that map at all. Like, just ignore that map,
yeah.
right? Obviously, you should still kind of try to scrim it every once in a while, but make sure that you always focus on whatever you're weakest at. Okay? It's not about making what you're good at better. It's about making what you're worse at less worse.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, I'd like to just like for next time, I guess we focus on positioning and repositioning more. Like we'll just instead of like we'll watch through like a full. I'll have more gameplay by then too. And with all this stuff you just told me, it'll be like I'll try to employ it as best as possible, and then I'll like play and like improvement from now until then, and then we'll go over that like heavily on the next one, I guess.
Sounds good.
All right, sweet. What do you honestly, bro? You're the coach.